Yeah.
You see, the question was this
Okay,
Maharatna
sorry.
terminology is 9, and you got the question right, I guess. Now we need to probably keep updating the
Navaratna.
qualification criteria.
Yeah, that's right. We keep on doing that updation. And as a result, more companies come into Miraculous, Navaratna, and Maharatna fields. In fact, today we have 10 Maharatnas. Originally, it was 5. With Coal India joining, it became 6. And then some, now it is 10, as far as I understand. Even Navaratna would be about 17. So that Nava doesn't have any meaning now. But basically, what they say is Maharatna should have a global exposure. They should be globally known. Navaratna should be, I mean, differentiated from the Miniratnas in terms of turnover, size, etc. They have some parameters. And Miniratnas, basically profitable PSUs with a track record, are entitled to Miniratna. So broadly, this is the classification. But I agree with you that there should be little more stringency in allowing the PSUs to enter into these categories.
Yeah, my only submission is that the qualification criteria has to be updated as we keep moving on with time. The qualification criteria has to be,
in fact, we should take a call
so that the standards of performance are also improved.
I agree. I agree with that.
Secondly, what are your views on behemoths like Coal India being led by IAS officers and not people who have grown up the ranks, having worked in the coal mines for 35 years? And suddenly somebody comes from Madhya Pradesh, Pramod Agarwal becomes the chairman.
The point is,
I'm not
insiders who have a depth of understanding, they are normally given a preference. But the problem happens if the government is unable to find, or rather the industry, the company is unable to throw up somebody with the kind of capability and substance of running the organization. If that is not available within the company, then what does the government do? The next call is IAS officers with some kind of experience. And some of the IAS officers have actually done well. For example, in Singareni, the CMDs are usually IAS officers. So, like one of the IAS officers of Singareni who came to Coal India was my successor, Shutitho Bhattacharya. He did a good job. He actually achieved the highest growth rate in the company. Like in 2000, that was 2015-16, he achieved a growth rate of 9%. That was the highest. So if you have experienced IAS officers with certain amount of exposure to coal and power, and Shutitho had both of that, so there they can deliver. But ideally, I would say that if you have a competent insider, the insider should get a preference because he knows the ecosystem much better.
I, as a layman, I do not understand anything about coal. All I understand is when I talked to a few other Coal India CMDs, it was very clear that it is difficult to fathom as to how come a company which has lakhs of employees and who have started their careers just like you with Coal India itself, and they're not able to find out somebody who can lead the organization after 30 plus years of services, and somebody who's an outsider is brought in, especially when you already have a secretary coal. We already have a secretary coal who's leading the coal ministry. So we did not have a duplicate sitting in the GMD's post. We can definitely find out somebody from the coal ranks across 7 subsidiaries that you have, people who have spent 35 years in the coal system. I am completely in favor of that particular ecosystem.
Now, let me tell you something. For example, normally the company has been led by mining engineers, or at least engineers. But on 2 occasions, Coal India had a non-engineer as CMD. One was in my case. Another one was Mr. P.K. Sengupta in the 90s. The 90s was when the company transformed from a loss-making to a profit-making enterprise and got the World Bank loan. That was under Mr. Sengupta. And with me, the company was able to achieve Mini, Nava, Maharatna, and IPO and all that. So if you say that Coal India is a mining company, should be run by mining engineers, is it necessarily correct? No, na? There are instances that non-mining people have also been able to produce good results. So similarly, just because somebody is an IAS or coming from outside, he will not be able to handle, is not correct, provided he has a right kind of experience. Like we had Mr. A.P.V.N. Sharma, who turned around Singareni Collieries. He was an IAS. If he would have come to Coal India, I'm quite sure you would have seen a fantastic chair. Okay, and he's not a mining engineer again. He's a civil engineer. Like Shutitha, for example. He came with experience of power sector. He was Principal Secretary Power in Andhra Pradesh. He was CMD of Singareni Collieries. I think he did a reasonably good job. Particularly the achieving the growth rate of 2014-15 more than 7% and 2015-16 more than 9% was not easy. So IAS people have done good. It is not that they have all failed. But fact remains that if you have a competent insider, you can go for it.
I'm not
now saying that competent insider is always available, should be available, that is not necessarily correct.
No, I am
because
not.
there are issues. You see, you just can't take a CMD of a subsidiary company and put him in Coal India. Because Coal India is a completely different job altogether. It requires a huge lot of boundary management. It requires boundary management with governments, state governments, your vendors, your consumers at a global level. So the tasks are different from that of a subsidiary CMD. So the tests or the faculties that are required to run the company efficiently, that are somewhat different. Now, anybody who has to come here must match those requirements. If he's from insider, all the good. I mean, it's definitely more preferable. But if the insider is not in a position to throw up the right people, just to take in somebody and put him, it will not work.
That is exactly.
Then there is a question of there are 8 CMDs.
I'll tell you.
There are 8 CMDs. You just put somebody,
Mr. Patel, you're right.
You may not find acceptance.
No, you're right. You're right when you say that somebody who has come from outside, there are examples of people having led the organization in a very efficient way. The question is not about anybody who has come, whether he has done a good job or not. The question is whether we could have nurtured talent in such a big behemoth, in such a way, somebody who was an insider, nurtured in such a way, some people, and definitely you people have training institutions, you people have infrastructure ecosystem that can nurture over 25 years, people to take that position over the years, just like the army does.
Yeah,
but in this country, the way
what you're saying does have merit.
Yeah, the way that the way the country works, the systems work.
As I said, the person insider has to have certain qualities.
I'll tell you an example.
Because Chairman Coal India's KRA or his job profile.
See, I was in a, I had a small word with Venkaiah Naidu ji once, the current honorable vice president of this country. Can you hear me? I had a word with Venkaiah Naidu ji once, and he was very subtly remarking a few years back that he was the urban development minister. He said, I come from a small town and I've been made. Venkaiah Naidu ji in 2014 remarked to me when he said that, see, Amit.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think now it's somewhat better.
See, I was having a word with Honorable Vice President once, and he remarked subtly that, see, Amit, the way systems work in this country is I come from a very, very rural background, and I am the urban development minister. And the guy sitting beside me, Mr. Nitin Gadkari, he comes from the best, probably the most advanced town of this country over years, Nagpur, and he is the rural development minister. So, well, that answers this question, I guess, more than enough. Now, let me ask you another thing. Yeah. Productivity linked wages. Now, productivity linked wages in collusion with the ministers and the top bosses, people at the excellence, is something which drives the incentive structures of these big behemoths. Any take on that?
Well, for the executives, there is in any case something called PRP, performance related pay. And I think it has been conceived well by the DP. It has been implemented well in Coal India in its own way. But the only issue is that it depends upon the MOU rating of the company and the rating of the individual officers. And then it is subject to overall ceding of 3% of the PBT of the of Coal India as a whole. Now, in doing that, the MOU rating is becoming a problem because, you see, MOU targets, to my mind, are being very much stretched out. And achieving that target doesn't make sense for the company because if you set up a target of production without looking at the demand side and the company is asked to produce, Normally the targets are 50, 60 million tons more than what has been achieved. And with what has been achieved, the stocks are at a record high. So if you produce more, it goes all into stock and then goes into burning. So the company doesn't produce. As a result, its MOU rating goes, and working has to be more. I'll say that is necessary for making this PRP system to work. As far as non-executives and workers are concerned, the performance related pay, there is nothing called performance related pay. There is a bonus which is basically a negotiated bonus. So that really is basically flexing of muscles between the management and the union at some point of time during the year. And
I'm just closing. Last question, sir. Are you in favor of privatization?
I am in favor of definitely, you see, private entry into coal mining should be there, but Coal India should continue. I am in favor of a mixed sort of a situation where there is a complementary production is coming from the private sector. Coal India stays there because Coal India has brought in a lot of stability to the system. That should not be disturbed. You can incrementally add because Coal India alone will not be able to meet the country's demand. I mean, the country's demand is much larger. So if you have to sort of displace imports, meet the whole requirement domestically, you need private players. Let them come. And they produce something like 150, 200, 250 million tons. Coal India produces the rest, and the country's demand is properly met. That is a more systematic way of doing it, to my mind.
Recently, there was a judgment just a couple of days back wherein Adani, not a judgment, Adani Power waived off 12,000 crores to the Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited. Now, this is because of they won the petition against the power utility for not being able to supply them the coal that they needed. Now, the coal production or extraction of coal at one side we can see that global there is a pressure to finish off the coal stocks as soon as possible, and there should be depletion of the coal reserves as fast as possible because it's a kind of a non-desirable energy resource that the global audience is now demanding for. And at the same time, we have here issues wherein companies are at loggerheads for coal supply or requirements of coal. So what is this? What is the solution to this that you suggest, so that the both ends can be met symbiotically?
You see, as far as thermal coal is concerned, the country should be able to meet the total demand. It should not be required to really import thermal coal, excepting for very high grades for very specific uses other than generating power. And that can be possible once the commercial miners come into production, because a lot of blocks have been taken. Adanis have also taken blocks. They will come into production in 2-3-4 years' time. Once that happens, there will be no shortage of coal, to my mind, after 2025 or so. And that's the solution.
So you really applaud the steps taken in 2020 by Prahlad Joshi for the auctioning. For the auctioning, the steps you applaud the steps taken for auctioning.
Yeah.
And you see a bright future for the coal sector and the total energy requirements for this country going forward.
At least not the future is reasonably bright for the next 25-30 years. Thereafter, they'll have to naturally go into other resources. Coal is not going to be there for all time to come, and one has to find out options and alternatives. In fact, I'm quite sure that Coal India will definitely survive well beyond coal. It will get into something else.
You led me to the next question.
You
led me to the next question. So next and final question. You led me to the final question. 2047, 25 years from now. That exactly when you say the coal reserves are going to be, at nearly the ending stages. If we follow a proper, system of auctioning, commercial mining, and all. So 2047, Coal India is going to survive. Where do you see Coal India as, and how do you see Coal India as in the year of 100th year of celebration of India's independence?
it will be a far more stronger company getting into various fields, because even if coal mining is not there, other mining will be definitely more important. You see, even for the renewable sector to thrive, you will require a lot of mining to be done for metals, rare earths, and things like that. So those opportunities are coming up. Cobalt, nickel, all these things. So Coal India will have to keep an open mind, expand its operations, make it global, make it international, and get into mining of all kind of commodities. Coal is, it is a miner. I mean, today it mines coal, tomorrow it can mine cobalt. So the day after it could be nickel. So what is wrong in that? So Coal India should be able to consolidate its position, and since it has already started looking at that direction and thinking in that direction, it's also getting into solar in a big way. It's getting into fertilizers in some form or other. So it knows that it has a pressure to diversify. And with the proper set of diversification, Coal India in 2047 is definitely going to be a much smarter, bigger, larger company as far as the net worth and financial parameters are concerned, not manpower. Manpower will be low, but all these things will be definitely much better than what it is today. That's what I think.
No, there's a very positive note on which we are ending the show today with Mr. Bhattacharya. Sir, we look forward to more interactions with people like you. The way you ended this show about Coal India's future in the 2047, with so many other areas and opportunities already, raising technicals, like we have so many organizations like IREDA and all that, who are into rare earth and all those extractions. There is a lot of need for companies with experience in mining like Coal India to ramp up production in these areas, because India is a make in India country. It's an Atmanirbhar country. It's an indigenous country. It has to grow as a self-reliant and Atmanirbhar and a self-dependent make in India country which produces and harnesses its resources to the optimized level. Thank you so much, sir. Look forward to listening from you again. Jai Hind, Namaskar.